Hello everybody, how are we all today? I hope everybody's well and ready to go through some customer and supplier corrections. We've got around 45 minutes booked in today and we've got plenty to go through as well. So if you've not heard me before, I'm Laura and I'm going to be hosting the webinar today. We've also got Michael in the background just waiting for any questions that you may have around the topic as well there. So if you do have any questions, pop them in there. Anything that's unrelated to the customer and supply corrections, we will try and answer, but we are going to sort of prioritise the ones that relate to the topic today. But if there's anything that we don't get covered today, we will pop you an email after the session's ended there. So as always, before we get started, just some housekeeping rules. So your mic's going to be muted automatically, but you will see there's a little question icon on the toolbar where you can submit any questions that you may have for Michael or myself. So make sure that you do pop them in there and keep them busy. Now we are using an updated version of the webinar program, so it might look slightly different to this, but the icons, they should just be along the top at the right there. And I have included the slides in today's session as there are some links at the end which you might find useful, along with some cheat sheets as well, which we've got included in there too, which I'll come on to a bit later on. So if you do want to download those, make sure you do that during the session. But there is also a printer-friendly version if you'd like to make notes as well. So this webinar is part of our Corrections Digital Badge series, and to qualify for that, you just need to attend any of the 3 of the 4 topics listed here, plus one of our quiz sessions, and that means that you'll earn that digital badge there at the end. You can register on our webinars page, but I've also included the link on the slide there too. So today we're going to be looking at processing customer and supplier corrections in your Sage 50 account software. So it looks the same whether you're doing the corrections for customers or for suppliers. So you can do what you can do in one side, you can do in the other ledger. And I'll also be doing a lot of the demonstration within the customers, but at the same time, the process, like I say, it is the same for suppliers. And I will be explaining that along the way there too. And I'm going to be covering a series of demonstrations within the program as well, just so you can see how to process these. But there is quite a bit to cover, so don't worry if you feel like there's a lot to go over all at once there. You will get a recording of the webinar via email in about an hour's time, or an hour after it's finished, I should say. Just means you can go through it at your own pace as well there. And I'm going to be providing those useful links on the guide to our help centre there as well, which are great to refer back to. So those are also included in the slides. So corrections are something that everybody's probably going to need to look at some point in time, and there's more than one way of tackling these. So first of all, we have the corrections feature, and these are features that are within your transactions window along the top toolbar. We have view, edit, unallocate, and delete. So view option gives you the posted details of the transaction. So you can see more detail within the posting information and see any linked transactions to the posting too. So if you've paid off a sales invoice, maybe with a credit note, you're going to see the allocated credit information from here. The edit option that allows certain fields on a transaction to be edited might be restricted depending on whether it's VAT reconciled or if it's been automatically generated from the software. But if you can't edit it from here, sorry, there'll be a way around it within terms of things like a manual correction. And then we've got unallocate. So what that does is it severs the link between the 2 allocated transaction. So if you've paid a sales invoice with a sales credit, but realized it was the wrong sales credit you've allocated, you can now just unallocate the transactions. So before the unallocate button came along a few years ago, if you needed to unallocate a transaction like an invoice and a credit, you would have needed to delete one of them and then repost it. But now you can just unallocate it on there. It just severs the link, leaves both transactions live in the system to be reallocated elsewhere. And then we've got the delete option. So deletes the transaction if it's not VAT reconciled. If it is VAT reconciled, the program will post a reversal of the transaction for you. Now, there is a whole separate webinar on VAT corrections, which we're going to be running on Wednesday, the 21st of January at 2 o'clock. So I have included a link to just on there, you can see on the screen for that, joining that webinar there. but we are going to be concentrating more on the customer corrections today. But I'm still going to run through obviously what that's going to look like for deleting them, just so you can see that within the program there. So there are two types of data fields when completing a transaction. So if you think about when you're entering an invoice, you have things like the account number, the nominal code, the bank account, and so on. Now, some are classed as critical and some are classed as non-critical. So a critical field, when amended, it requires the original transaction to be cancelled and a new one posted. And that's because it's something that's deemed audit critical. So these are things like your customer and supplier account reference, the nominal code, the bank account, the date, the net and the VAT amount, and the tax code. And then we've got things which are non-critical fields. So when we make amendments to those, amendments can be made with no reversal or cancellation of the original posting. So it's just like going in and changing it, and it leaves everything else the same. Those tend to be more around details such as the things like the transaction reference or the transaction details, the department, the payment reference, or the bank reconciliation flag. But I've included a handy link on for our guides from our help centre there. It's all around editing and deleting critical and non-critical transactions, just if you want a bit more information on that. But again, I'm going to be running it through in the demonstration as well, so you can see what it looks like. So there are a few things to consider when correcting transactions. So if you're editing or deleting a transaction that's been created from the invoices and credits module, that edit or deletion does not link back to the original invoice within the invoice and credits module. And that's the same with the stock module. So if you make changes to a transaction, that's not going to link back to stock either. So there would need to be a manual adjustment for the stock separately. There's no impact on original orders or quotes, and deleted transactions will still show in the transaction window for auditing purposes, but you can filter these out, so you can pop a filter on there just so they're hidden in the background if you don't want to see them. What I'd always say is if you're unsure, try it out in the demonstration data or take a backup of your data first before doing anything there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop into my system and we can have a look at these in a bit more detail there. So I'm just going to open up my Sage on your screen there just so you can see that. So if we have a look, first of all, I'm going to pop into my transactions module and just have a look at those buttons that I was mentioning before. So we've got the view, and we've got, if I just click on the top there, we've got view and edit, we've got unallocate, and we've got delete there. So unallocate, that's grayed out at the moment, and I'll come on to that a bit later on there. But the first thing I'm going to have a look at is editing a non-critical field. So remember, that's when amendments can be made with no reversal or cancellation to the original transaction there. So I'm going to look at amending the department in this one. So I've got my sales invoice here. They're all set to department 0 at the moment. And I'm just going to click on edit at the top, which will open up the invoice details in a bit more depth for you, so you can see things like the description and the date on there, who it's been posted by. If it's VAT reconciled, it'll have the date in there as well. Things like your exchange rate, currency. If we click on edit again, it's going to open up another window, which I'll pull across because that one opens up on the other screen for some reason. And we've got a bit more depth there. So we've got the net and the tax amount, you've got your tax code details, and we've got the department in here as well. And that's what I'm going to look at changing. So I'm just going to change it from department 0, just going to use the drop down, and I'm just going to change it to department 1. And I'm going to close the first window, and then I'm going to save the second window. We'll get a little message just saying, do you want to post these changes? And I'm just going to say yes to that. And you can see nothing else has been posted at the bottom. The line's not in red or anything like that. All that's happened is it's just amended that department for us on the original. So that's quite straightforward. Then we've got the critical field. So that's when a transaction is amended and it requires the original transaction to be cancelled and a new one posted for this. So I'm going to look at changing the date on an invoice. So we'll look at the next sales invoice I've got here. So I've got a sales invoice here. We've got the date, which is the 4th of September last year on there. So I'm going to look at changing the date on that one. So I'm going to click on edit again, which will bring up this window for us. Now you can just free type in this window if you want to, or there is a little can click on the calendar there. It'll open up the calendar for us. I'm just going to change it to the 4th of August, just take it back a month on there. And again, I'm just going to save it. We'll get the same prompt there. Do you wish to process these changes? Yes, we do. And you'll see this time we've now got an additional transaction at the bottom there. So the original transaction is still there. So we can see the original ones up here. That doesn't appear in red or anything like that. But we can see that the date has now been changed on there. So we've gained this extra transaction at the bottom, which shows the original details of the original transaction. And it's in red, showing that it's deleted, but also that it has the details on of C transaction 2. So we know that that one links to transaction 2. We've got the date, which was the original date, which was the 4th of September, but it's posted that deleted transaction, and in its place, we've still got the original one, which has been amended on there. So it links back to that original posting for you. So that's editing both a non-critical and a critical field, just so you can see what the difference looks like. Now we'll have a look at deleting transactions on there. So you might need to delete a transaction, and deleting a transaction which is not VAT reconciled is straightforward. We highlight it, we delete it, and then if you need to, you can create a new posting. So for this, I'm going to have a look at my sales invoice, so transaction number 5 here. If we have a look along here, it's not VAT reconciled, so there's an N in that column. We've got nothing showing for any VAT registration number, so it's not VAT reconciled, so it's nice and straightforward. So all we need to do is highlight it, click on delete at the top there, gives us this window, and then we can click delete. We'll get the message just asking, do you wish to delete this transaction? I'm just going to say yes to that. And then I'm going to close it. And we can see now, if I just click off that, you can see now it's in red. And in here, we have now got, it shows as a deleted SI, and it's in red. So we know that that's been deleted. Doesn't create any additional transactions. That's nice and straightforward on there. So transaction 3, we'll have a look at that. You may see we've got one here, which is actually VAT reconciled on there. So we can see transaction 3, we've got an R in the reconciled, showing it's reconciled, in the VAT column. We know it's in VAT red, the reconciliation number 1, and we've got the VAT date on there as well. So we know that that invoice has been declared to HMRC. So if I make any amendments to this, I need to inform HMRC of those amendments. So I'm going to have a look at deleting this particular transaction. So it's just the same. And for these options here, you can just right click as well. You've got those options in here as well. So we can delete from here. It'll open up this window just saying this is the invoice that we're going to be deleting. I'm going to say delete. But now I get a slightly different message on there. We get a message asking if I want to reverse the transaction. So because it's VAT reconciled, it can't delete it, but what the program will do is it'll post the opposite transaction for me. So reversing it just means posting the opposite of a sales invoice, which is a sales credit. So I'm going to post that. It's going to post a credit for me to counteract it. And previously, this was something that had to be done manually, but the software now does it for you, just making it a bit easier. So if I say yes to that, and then we'll close that out. And if I just tab off it, so we can still see that we've got our transaction here. It's not in red. If we go along, we can now see that it's got cancel in the reference there. So you won't get a red deleted line, but what you can see on the original, it's still showing, but now it's got the cancel in that reference column. So it's still live in there, but it has been cancelled, and we've got a new transaction which has appeared at the bottom here, which is that sales credit. And that sales credit, that's been posted as a reversal, because remember, we need to let HMRC know this because the original was VAT reconciled there. So it just means when you run your next VAT return, this transaction will pop up as previously unreconciled, and you'll tick just to include it, which is then going to correct your VAT figures for HMRC. We are running a VAT corrections webinar, which you may have seen from one of the slides there. That's running on Wednesday, the 21st of January at 2 o'clock. So if you do want to find out a bit more about VAT corrections, that's a really good one to get signed up there. So that's deleting transactions when they're not VAT reconciled and when they are VAT reconciled. But you can see there the program pretty much does it all for you anyway. There's just those slight differences of how it deals with it there. Now, as I did mention, some people don't like to have red lines showing there. They don't like to show the deleted transactions. You can pop a filter on, which will just remove them and hide them in the background if you want to. So if we clicked on the filter at the top here, I think it's already in there from last time when I did this, but if we leave the option of underneath join, we're going to select where. These have all got drop-down boxes. So within the field option, I'm going to have deleted transaction deleted flag, and then I'm going to say is equal to, and I'm just going to change that to no. When I apply that, it has a little think about it, close it, you can see I've got no red lines in there now. So they're hidden in the background. So it's showing 24 of my 26 records. So they're still there, they're just hidden in the background there. And then just to clear the filter, you just click on the funnel there again and it'll bring them back for you, just if you do want to hide them. So we'll have a look at the unallocate now. So as I mentioned before, it's grayed out at the moment at the top on there. So you may have an invoice and a sales receipt which has been allocated to one another incorrectly. So rather than having to delete anything, you can simply just unallocate them, which just means separating them so that they're no longer linked in the background, and then you can allocate them elsewhere if you want to. So the unallocate will be grayed out if there's no transaction actually allocated to the one that you're on at the moment. So I've got this one highlighted. So if I just show you what I mean by that, I'm going to click on edit just to bring up the window there. And I'm going to click edit again. Pull that one over here. So when we click edit again, we've got a payment allocation window just here. And in this window, it'll tell us if there's anything allocated to that particular transaction. So because there's nothing actually allocated, I can't click the unallocate button. It would be if you were on perhaps a journal as well, it would be grayed out for that because you can't allocate a journal. So I'll just close out of those windows. If we have a look at, I think transaction 4, we've got something allocated on here. And if I click edit again, not sure why the other one just pulls over on that window there. So now we can see in the payment allocation window, we've got a sales receipt and it's telling us it's sales receipt 15. So this line here, we've got item number 15, which is a sales receipt there. This is our sales receipt, which is allocated to this sales invoice there. So if that's being allocated incorrectly, what we can do is just unallocate them. So if I close out of here, and if we just have a look, so at the moment it's shown as a sales receipt transaction number 15, and you can highlight either of them and then click unallocate. But I'm just going to leave it on the sales invoice. I'm going to click unallocate. It'll just give us a confirmation message. Do you wish to unallocate this transaction? And I'm just going to say yes. Doesn't look like anything's really happened. But if we have a look at transaction 15, it's now not a sale receipt. It's now showing, it's now changed to a sale on account, indicating that there's a payment on account there for it now because it's not actually allocated to anything. So if we go back in, I'm just going to click on view there. Sorry, I'm going to click on edit just to bring up that window and edit again there. And I'm just going to pull it over just so you can see what that looks like now. So now we know there was a sales receipt that was allocated to it, but that's been cancelled. So we've severed that link between the sales receipt and the invoice on there. And that's just the same for, if I just close out of those, if I go to our sale on account, click edit, edit again, drag that over, and we can see that it was once allocated to a sales invoice, but not anymore. That's been severed, that link on there. So now those are both free to be allocated elsewhere if you need to. So the next bit we're going to have a look at is the invoices and credits on there. So I'm going to go into my invoices and credits module. We'll have a look at number one, invoice number 1 first of all. So I'm just going to show you that. I'm just going to bring it up so we can have a look at it. So it's a product invoice. It's got stock included on it. We can see it was for a total of £6 at the bottom on there. So that's the invoice that we're going to be having a look at, and if this is what we're wanting to cancel on there. So in the column for posted, we know that it's been updated to the ledgers. because it says yes in there. And what that means is, because it's been updated to the ledgers, it has posted a transaction within the transactions module, and it's also adjusted the stock as well. And it will also be on the customer activity as well. So if we go and have a look, we'll just pop into transactions, first of all on there. I think it's this one here. Yeah, so we've got our sales invoice. We can tell this is our invoice number 1. So that's the one that we've just been looking at there. We've got the net amount and the tax amount. But if we go and have a look at our products and services, and I have just got one set up just to make it a bit easier, and we'll just have a look at the activity there. Open up this window. So there are some historic ones in there. If you just ignore those ones on there. So these are the ones that we're concentrating on here. So we've got, it was the same date, the 18th of November, 2025, and it was invoice number 1. We've also got a smart link here. So if I click on that, we can double check it. What that will do is, if I click on the smart link, it opens up the invoice for me as well. So I can see where that's come from on there. If you need to go in and check the invoice, which is always quite handy. And we've got the goods out on there. Okay. So what will happen is, so this has been posted to the ledgers, it's completed, it's updated everywhere within the program on there. And because it's been completed, it's posted the invoice in the transactions module, which we've looked at as well. So if I was to just go into the transactions module and thought, right, I just need to delete this invoice that I've got here, I don't need it anymore. If I just delete it from here, that's not going to adjust the stock back in. All it's going to do is just delete it. It's just going to take it out of your transactions module on there. So it's still going to show the stock being moved out within products and services, and it's still going to show the invoice in your invoices and credits module. So I'll just show you what that looks like so we can compare it to when we do it correctly. So if I delete that one, so I'm just going to click delete at the top, delete that, and just confirm that it's been deleted. Now, what you would think would happen because you're deleting it, or what you would want to happen, is obviously stock being adjusted back in. But if we go back to our activity, nothing's come back in. There's no goods received on there. So if you're using the invoice and credits module, what I would suggest is a manual reversal using the credit option, which will adjust the stock. And that's also going to reverse the original invoice. And then that's also, you can then go and post a new invoice if needed on there. But that's going to adjust the stock for you. It's going to clear everything up. There is also the credit invoice option, but I'll come on to that in a bit. So I'm just going to go through it sort of manually at the moment there. So if we go back in, and we'll just have a look in our invoices and credits, and I'm going to have a look at invoice number 2 on here. So I want to do the same thing on here. We know that it's been posted to the ledgers. So we've got the stock going out. So if we go back into our products and services, into the activity, we can see here, so there is our invoice number 2. We've got the goods out, we've got the quantity, which was 10 on there, and we've got the cost price, etc. along there, and we've got the smart link to our invoice there. So what we want to do is make sure that the stock is being adjusted when we make this correction there. So what we can do is we can go back to invoices and credits, and we can click on new credit. And what we want to do is create a credit note with the same details on there, which I've made a note of them. So it's just a bit easier to be able to pop them in there. So I know that my customer, it was 1B that we'll be using. You can change the date if you want to, if you want the same date showing as the original on there. I'm just going to leave it as it is there. I'm going to choose my my product on there, which I've only got batteries. I've just set one of them up, and it was for a quantity of 10. And we've got the amount, which was £60 there in total. So I'm going to save my credit note, and then I'm going to close that window on there. So it has a little bit of a think about it. So now we can see we've got the invoice, the original invoice, and now we've got the credit note for it there as well. So we'll go back in and just check the stock now and see how that looks within the stock there. So if I go back into my activity, we can now see on here, oh, I tell you what I need to do first of all. If I go back into my invoice and credits, I haven't posted it to my ledgers on there. So you would have noticed there was no goods received on there for it. The important thing at the moment, that credit note's just sitting in here. It's not gone anywhere. It hasn't updated the stock, hasn't updated the transactions or the customers module or anything like that. I need to update the ledgers on there. I definitely got carried away with it there. So if I click OK to that, so as you can see, that's quite an important part of it. I'll just maximize that so you can see this. So what this is, this just tells us that invoice number 5, which is a credit, it's created transaction number 27. That's the date that I've posted it, and then it gives you the account details, and we've got the amounts on there for it. So if I close out of there, we'll go back to the stock, and you'll now see, I open that up, a goods returned note on there for it. Okay, so we've got the original goods out, which was this one here. There's our invoice for the smart link if we needed to look at it. And then we've got our goods returned. So it's put that stock back in there for us. If we go and have a quick look at the customer, so I'm just going to pop into the customers module, and I appreciate there's quite a lot to be taken in here as well. So there's a lot of sort of going around the screen just to be able to fit it all in for you. But now we've got a balance on the customer's account there, okay? If we have a quick look at the activity, just to see what that looks like. So we've got the original sales invoice, and we've got the original sales receipt. And then what we've done is we've raised that sales credit, which has reversed the invoice to put the stock back in for us. So now we can either refund the customer. So if the customer says, right, well, I just want a refund, please, or they might just say, can you just leave that on my account? But if we want to just process a refund, we can just click on refund at the top, select our customer, which was 1B. And at this point, you can decide, are you going to refund it in full? Do they just want a partial refund? I'm going to refund it in full. So I'm just going to click on refund in full at the top there, or F3 on your keyboard. Save that, and then close it. And we can see now there's no balance on there. So if we go and look at that activity now, it's all nice and balanced with that double entry on there. See there, we've now got that refund showing. So that's all nicely tied up. But the main thing is the stock on there for it. If we obviously previously when we just deleted the transactions from the transactions module, all it's done is it hasn't put the stock back in there for us. So it's entirely up to them if they want to have the refund back, but you know, that's how we would process that on there. What I have done is, though, I've included on the slides some manual reversal cheat sheets for both customers and suppliers. So when you're posting a manual reversal, we need to think about what the opposite transaction is. So I'll pop back to my slides just so I can show you what I mean by that. So if you want to, or you prefer a manual correction, you need to find out what the opposite of what you've originally posted is. And this is a little cheat sheet that I mentioned earlier, which is handy to refer to. So there is one for suppliers as well. So if you're reversing an invoice, we can see on there, you would just need to post a credit note, which is the reversal of that. To reverse a credit note, you can post an invoice, or you can post a sales payment to refund it, and so on. So I've also done one for suppliers as well. So here we have the reversal transactions you would need to make for a manual reversal for suppliers. So if you're downloading this, these are really handy cheat sheets, because I don't know about you, if you see that there's something wrong in the program and then you think, oh, how do I need to fix that? This is really good to refer back to on there. But you can see it's just the same process for customers as it is for suppliers. So if you have a credit that you need to reverse for a supplier, depending on what you want to do with that, if you just want to reverse it, you would just post a purchase invoice. Or if you want to refund this to the supplier, you would post a supplier payment. Okay. So for a scenario, imagine that you've fully paid an invoice, a sales invoice, and it's been paid off in full with a sales receipt. How can we reverse that? So the first thing that we need to understand is that when we need to look at reversing both of these transactions on there, so we need to post two transactions. So you've posted two when you've originally set them up, you need to post two to reverse them. And sometimes what we see is when people call in, they've tried to reverse this, they've posted a credit note, and then they've left it at that. but the credit note is then left outstanding on the account and they're not really sure why there's a balance on there. So we'll have a look at that in the program on there. So I'm just going to pop back into my Sage there. I'll just open that back up and we'll have a look. I'll just go to transactions and just see which ones we're going to have a look at reversing. So I think it's 23 and 24 down here. So we've got a sales invoice and a sales receipt. So say for some reason we need to raise a credit note and we need to refund that customer. It could be that the items were no longer needed, for example. So what we'll be doing is we'll be reversing both these transactions. If we just raise the credit, that's going to leave a balance. We also need to show the refund. As this includes stock for these ones on here, we need to do this within the invoices and credits module where the invoice was originally raised. So we can see here it's invoice number 4. So that's the one that we're going to have a look at first of all there. And we're going to raise a credit and match the posting details of the original invoice. So if I pop back into my invoice and credits, and I've got my invoice number 4 here. So if I just open that up, we'll just have a quick look at it on there. Just see the details. So again, we've got it's a product invoice. We've got it's customer 1A there. Everything's for batteries in this demonstration. So we've got batteries again. The quantity was 20 and it's for £120. So I need to raise a credit note for that. So I'm going to close out of that. And I will be coming on to this credit invoice option in a minute for anybody that's sort of spotted that up there. So bear with me. I'm just going to show you the manual reversal first of all there. So I'm going to click on new credit. Just let that open the window. I'm going to choose my customer, which was 1A. And I'm going to choose my product, which is quite easy to remember, batteries. And I'm going to tab along, and it was a quantity of 20. And it was for £120 exactly on there. Again, if you want to change the date, you can do. I'm just going to leave it the same on there for now, just for the demonstration on there. And I'm just going to save that. And then I'm going to close it. Having a little bit of a think about it. My computer's on a bit of a go slow today. So at the moment, we've got obviously the invoice that's updated to the ledgers. We need to remember to update this one to the ledgers as well. Let's not get caught out like I did before. So I'm going to update that to the ledgers. Let's drag that over. Say OK to that. And then we'll just get that confirmation screen on here, the confirmation page. If I just make that a bit bigger. Oh, not that big. It's telling us that it's posted invoice number 6, which is a credit, posted transaction number 29 in our transactions module, gives us the date and the other information on there for it too. So if I close out of that, we'll just go and have a look at the customer now. So this is where some people go, well, I've raised a credit for it, but I've got a balance on here. Why have I got a balance? So if I open up the activity, what's happened is, when it brings it up on there, so this is our original invoice, invoice number 4. And what we've done is we've reversed the invoice with our credit that I've just posted. So that's been done. But then we haven't done anything about reversing the sales receipt on there. And that's why you've still got that balance. So the next step in there is to then process that refund. So if I come out of this and we can just click on refund at the top, I'm going to choose my customer, which is 1A. And again, you can do a partial refund if that's what you need to. You can type into here as well. So I'll type in 120, or if it's a full refund, you can click on refund in full at the top there. And then I'm just going to save that. And if we close this window, then we'll have a look at the activity again there. You might have seen before I quickly clicked on here. Oh, the balance is 0. We can see it up there, but we've now got the double entry, which is nice and ties up on there for it. So we've got now that refund processed. And if I just come back out of this window, or I'll just show you quickly there again, sales invoice we had in the sales receipt. Now we reverse the sales invoice with the sales credit, and we reverse the sales receipt, which is that one there, with that sale payment on there. So that's all nicely tied up. And when we have a look, we've got the balances showing as 0 on there as well. So that's how to manually reverse those, but you also have the credit invoice option, which I mentioned earlier. So that's within the invoice and credits module, and that can sometimes speed things up for you as well on there. So obviously, if our invoice was raised within the invoice and credits module, we can raise a credit invoice on there, and I'll show you how that works. So at the moment, this one's not been updated to the ledgers, so I'm going to update it to my ledgers. I don't know, some things like to open up on my other screen and some things like to open up on this screen, I think, just to be a little bit difficult when it knows I'm running a webinar there. It's having a good think about it at the moment. Right, there we go. So we've got invoice number 3. It was an SI, and it's created that transaction number 31 in our transactions module, and it's got the date, etc. So the date it was originally input was the 18th, but I've just updated it to the ledgers today, but it gives us the original date that that invoice was popped on the system there. Okay, so we've updated it to the ledgers. If we go into our products and services and go back to the activity, and we can see we've now got a goods out for that. So there was our invoice number 3, the original posting date, the goods out, the quantity of 2 on there. So to use the credit invoice option, if I just close out that window, I'm going to go back into my invoices and credits. I'm going to highlight the invoice that I want to raise the credit for, and I'm just going to click on credit invoice. What that will do is it's going to create an invoice, which if we have a look along the top, I think my computer needs a bit of an update. It's gone a bit of a go slow there, so I do apologise. But you can see along the top, we've got product credit from invoice number 3. So we know what it's done is it's pulled all that information through and it's just raised a credit based on all the information. So instead of me manually typing it in, what it's done is it's just created that credit note for me. It's put today's date in. Again, you can change the date if you want to. That's entirely up to yourself on there. And then I can just save that credit note. It'll give me a message. It'll just say, do you want to update this credit note? So update it to the ledgers and allocate it to invoice 3. I'm going to say yes to that. And then what that does is we've got another message that will pop up, of course, on the other screen that says credit note number 7. So it'll post it obviously just underneath here, which will create transaction number 32 in my transactions module, has been updated. So it's updated it to the ledgers and it's allocated it to invoice number 3. So that's the one that we were trying to reverse on there. And that relates to transaction 31 in my transactions module. So I'm going to say okay to that. That's great. And then we'll go back into our products and services module. And just have a quick look at the activity within here. And now we can see we've got our credit note, which is number 7, goods returned, and that's coming back in there again. So you can see it's quite easy. You can use that credit invoice option. So I just thought I'd show you how to do it manually because it's always good to know how to do it manually. But then also you have got that credit invoice option at the top there as well. One other thing to point out is obviously if you're using the credit invoice option, if you've got an invoice with multiple lines on there, I'll just quickly create one and show you. So if I just click on new invoice, it is on a bit of a go slow, my computer today. I think everything's been working a little bit slow. It needs one of those updates, I think, so apologies. I'm just going to choose a random customer and I'll pop a couple of lines on here. It's going to let me go through on there. It's having a moment at the moment, I think. Right, finally. So I'm just going to put a few lines on. They're all going to have to be the same item, I'm afraid, on there. So I'll just have one and I'll do battery packs and I'll do. Now I would imagine if you had, it keeps jumping around, so I do apologise. I think that is something to do with my computer there. Quantity 15, and then if I do another line, you're probably going to have lines with different items on, I should imagine, rather than having the same thing. But just so you get an idea, battery packs again, and I'll say 20. So we can see the difference on there between them. Okay, so I'm just going to save that just so I can show you the credit item line, because if you've got an invoice which has got multiple lines on there and you think, well, I can't use the credit invoice option because I don't want to credit all of them, you can do that on there. That's absolutely fine. So if I just update the ledgers, I'll just quickly say okay to that, and it'll just give me that confirmation screen just telling me that it's posting those 3 invoices on there. So if I just make that a bit bigger, I don't know if it's just me clicking through it quite quickly there that it's trying to catch up. So it's posted those 3 invoices. Those are the transaction numbers it's created, all from invoice number 8. So if I close out of that and say, right, I need to just raise a credit for one of them on there. If I click on credit invoice, so I've got my invoice highlighted with the 3 lines, credit invoice. I'll just give it a moment to catch up there. And we can see we've got those 3 lines on there. Now, if you don't want to raise a credit for all of them on there, what you can do is if we highlight the line, when it lets me click on it, and we can just click on remove row at the top, it'll take that out. So say I just want to raise a credit for the middle one, for the 15 units on there, click on the lines that you want to remove and remove them out of there. You might want to leave a few in there. That's absolutely fine. We can then save that, and it'll just give the same message. Do you want to update it? Update the credit note and allocate to invoice 8. I'm just going to say yes to that. That's fine. So what it'll do is we'll get the message like we had before. So credit number 9, or credit 9, sorry, which will pop in there in a moment when I click OK. It's created transaction number 36. It's been updated and it's been allocated to transaction invoice number 8 there. All right, which is giving us transaction number 33, sorry. So I'll just say OK to that, and it'll bring up that credit note on there for it. There we go. So there's our credit note. Okay. If we have a look in transactions, just to make it a bit more sort of obvious as to what that looks like, what's been posted transaction wise. If we have a look at the bottom here, so you can see here's our invoice number 8. We've got the 3 lines that was originally posted, and then I've erased a credit note just for one of those lines. There's my credit note there, which is posted just for my, you can see it's easier just to see from the figures on there. So it's just raised a credit note for one of the lines on there. And stock wise, if we go back into products and services again, and I do feel like I am whizzing between all of the items on here just to make sure we can get it all in. We've got the 3 goods out, which were relating to the 3 lines on invoice number 8. And then we've got a goods returned just for one of them on there, for one of the lines for the 15 quantity. All right, so you can do that as well. Okay. So if I close out of there, there is a correcting invoices and orders webinar on the Help Centre as well. I have included a link on the slides, which, because it's a whole webinar in itself, so I don't want to go too far off topic today because it's already quite a meaty session, and we're going to be running over time a little bit there, so I do apologise. But the last thing I'm just going to show you is the write-offs wizard. So I'll pop back just to my slides there. So we've also got the write-off and refund wizard, and that's only recommended if you're on standard VAT, which does tend to be the main scheme of our customers. So if you're not too sure what VAT scheme on, you can have a look at your help at the very top in the middle and about, and at the top, just at the top of your Sage there, and it'll show on the left-hand side under configuration information, the VAT scheme that you're on there. So the wizard is something that completes the steps that we've already looked at, and it came into the program before the refund option was available. But during the time that I was on technical support, it's not something I did see that was used a lot, to be honest. But I wouldn't be doing my job properly if I didn't show you this. And it can be helpful if it's not something that you do on a regular basis. So like anything, there's pros and cons. So it is automatic. It does all of the details and the posting for you, so it just saves you the time and the need, which is what makes it nice and quick and easy to use. But you can only use it on full value, so you couldn't process a partial refund, for example, and you can't use it on foreign transactions either, so only transactions in your base currency. But like I say, if you're not yet confident with the software, this is a good way to walk through processing a correction. It takes you through it step by step, and you can even have a go at it in the demonstration data as well. So rather than your live data, if you're not yet confident with it, you can't break anything in the demonstration data. It's just a preset set of data. It's not linked to your live data in any way. But I've included the link there, which is a guide on our help centre, which covers how to use the wizard. And we also do have a separate webinar on write-offs on our recordings page too. But I'll pop back in just to show you how it works for a customer invoice refund, just so you can see what it looks like in the system there. So I'll pop back into my programme there, and we'll just have a quick look. So you'll find the wizard in both the customers and the suppliers at the top. So remember, everything we do within customers, we can do within suppliers there as well. So we'll have a look at, I'll just show you along here. So we've got, this is the write-off and refunds wizard. If you can't see it along the top, if you right click along there, you can see you've got a list of everything you can take in and you can remove from there as well. So if I take off, say I take off new and untick sort of the new option on there. It's having a right think about it today, mind, I have to say it there. It's removed my option to be able to click on new. If you right click anywhere, you can tick it and just it pops it back in there for you. There, it's back in there again. So if you can't see it, it might just be that it's hidden in the background. So I'll just pop into my transactions. We'll just have a look for an invoice, which I think is number 9. I think we've got this one here, sales invoice 9. So this one here, we'll have a look at refunding this with the wizard. So we've got a sales invoice, and we'll just have a look and see what's been allocated to it. So if I click edit and edit again, it opens up that other window on my other screen. Pull that over. So we can see there that the sales invoice has been paid with a sales receipt. So we've got sales receipt number 18. So if I have a look here, we've got, there it is, that's our sales receipt. So that sales receipt there has paid off our sales invoice. So those are what we're going to be looking for to refund for this customer with one on there. So I'm going to close out with that. Close out with that one. Go back to my customers. I'm going to click on the write-off and returns just so you can have a look and see what it looks like. And you can see there's lots of different options in here as well. But for the sake of time, I know we're already over. I'm going to leave it as customer invoice refunds, and I'm going to choose my customer from the drop down, which was Wiz1. I'm going to click OK to that, and next. Now you might have lots of transactions in here. I've just got the one, so we knew it was transaction or in the sales invoice number 1. That's the one that we're looking at refunding. And I'm going to use the drop-down box to select my bank account. So just make sure that you're selecting the correct bank account on there. And then I'm going to click next again. And you can change the date. Again, you've got the little icon there for the calendar. And I'm going to put an additional reference in. So we'll put refund demo. Obviously, you can put anything in there that you want to, and I'm going to click next to that. Now, I'm just getting this message because I'm outside of my financial year. So my financial year, you can see the bottom, is January 2025. I just haven't run my year end yet. So it's just letting me know that I'm posting it outside of my financial year. But for the sake of the demonstration, I'm just going to say yes to that. That's fine. And then it gives you a sort of a summary of what you're posting. And then I'm going to say post it on there. And then if I go back into my transactions module, and if I just scroll down to the bottom there, I do apologise, it's on such a go slow at the moment. I'll see if I can just scroll down. It's not wanting to scroll down to the bottom for some reason on there. I'll just give it a moment just while it's having a think about it. When it gets there at the end of it, it should show us that we've got a sales credit note, which has been posted, and the sales payment. So in the reference, it'll clearly label that there's been a refund on there, and it's just a good way to track them on there as well. So I think it's had a good think about it there. I'll just see if I can scroll down to the bottom. Always great when things work when you're demonstrating. I'll just swap it over. What I'll do is I'll click on the top, and what it'll do is it'll just reorder them for me. So everything that was at the bottom is now at the top, so we can see that. So we can see now it's posted that sales credit for us. So remember, we had an invoice and we had a payment to refund on there. So it's processed the refund and it's processed that sales payment. And we can see in the reference column, it's got refund showing on there as well. So it's showing the refund. And if we just make that a little bit larger as well, we can see the extra reference. We've got the refund demo, which is what I popped into there as well. I'm just going to have a quick look just to see if we're on top of the questions on there. So I can see Carol's mentioning just about deleting a supplier's invoice on there. So let me just have a look and see if I can quickly run through, because we are quite over time at the moment on there. I'll just have a look and see if we've got, I think we have got supplier one in here that we can have a look at refunding. But I'll just see if, I think Michael's picking that one up as well. But I'll just quickly run through a supplier's one. Then you can see that it just looks the same as it does for customers on here. So if I have a quick look, so I think I've got, that's them down here. Yeah, so I've got a suppliers, I've got a purchase invoice and a purchase payment. So we can have a look at refunding those on there. So we've got those, but say we needed to return them and get a refund for them. So because we've got two transactions here, we'll need to post two transactions to complete that reversal. So first we'll have a look at reversing that purchase invoice on there. So if I go into my suppliers, and it has a good think about it on there. And I've just got the one supplier set up, which makes it a bit easier on there as well. And we're just going to have a look at the details for that within the suppliers. So if I go to my activity, just to show you what that looks like. There, so we've got our purchase invoice and we've got our purchase payment on there. So what we need to do is we need to reverse that by creating those two transactions on there. So I'm going to go back in and post a batch credit for it. So if we come out of there, I'm going to click on batch credit first of all. Just let it have a think about it. I think I must need to do a restart of my PC. So I do apologize for how it's lagging on there. I've got my supplier. I'm just going to leave the date the same. I'm going to leave the nominal code the same, so we need to leave all the details the same. The amount was for £100 on there for it, and that included VAT, and it was a T1 tax code. So I'm going to save my credit note, and I'm going to close that. Just give it a moment to have a think about it. I don't know if it's because I've been sort of whizzing around all of the screens on there that it's having a good think about it. So essentially we need to raise that credit note, which will then, it'll give us the balance on the supplier's account. And then it's just a case of processing that refund on there for it. I don't know if it's gonna let me, yes. So now we can see we've got the balance on there of £100. Now all I need to do is go click on refund at the top. I'm just gonna choose my supplier, just supplier one. It's quite easy when you've only got the one supplier. Obviously, I can appreciate that you'll probably have more than one in your program. And then if you want to just do a partial refund, again, you can type in here. If you're doing a full refund, you can either type just refund in full at the top there and then save that. And that's, you can see it's just the same within suppliers as it is within customers there. So there's no real great difference. I'll just try and close that window so I can show you the activity quickly on there as well. But essentially, that's it. I do appreciate there's a lot to go through with corrections on there, and you're probably thinking that was a lot of information, but you will get a recording in about an hour's time as well. So it just means you can go through it at your own pace there. But this is the activity for the supplier. It's just loading it up there. It's having a think. So we did have our purchase invoice and our purchase payment. All I've done is raised a purchase credit which reverses that purchase invoice. And then I've raised the purchase refund, which has reversed that purchase payment on there. And you can see the double entry all nicely meets up there, and the balance is at 0 there as well. So nice and tidied up there. So I'll pop back to our slides there. So I'll just keep that open for a couple of minutes longer. It looks like Michael is on top of all of the questions. Like I say, don't forget you're going to get that recording in about an hour's time via email, so you can watch it back at your own pace and give it to colleagues if they want to have a look at it as well there. So do appreciate there's a lot to cover when it comes to corrections in there. So apologies if you feel like that was a lot of information to take in, but I didn't want to miss anything out for you. But as always, I've included some links to our guides on here as well, to our help centre. So you might find these useful. So we've covered them all in the demonstration there, but sometimes it can just be helpful if you've got the step-by-step guides in front of you. I know I quite like that as well. And you can access our webinars page at sage.co.uk/webinars. All of our past recordings are free on there to view, here along with signing up for the upcoming webinars on there as well. The link's just on the slide there. Don't forget we are covering bank payments, receipts and transfers with Abby this Thursday at 2. And then we've got journal corrections next Tuesday at 2 o'clock. And Wednesday the 21st, we've got those VAT corrections with Matt at 2 o'clock as well. And then that corrections quiz, that's going to be hosted by the lovely Michael next Thursday the 28th at 2 o'clock there. So that does bring us to the end of today's session. So I hope you found that useful, especially those little cheat sheets as well, which show you what to post to reverse a transaction there. As always, you're going to get that survey just when leaving today's session as well. So I'd love it if you could leave us any feedback. We do read each and every one of them on there as well. Even if you want to pop in there, if there's something that you'd like to see a webinar on, perhaps you can pop it in there as well, or anything you'd like to see done differently maybe. But for now, thank you for attending, and I appreciate your time, especially with going over on there as well. So if there's any unanswered questions, obviously we'll pop you an email there, but it looks like Michael's pretty much on top of them. All right, well, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day.